Data summary. We know that data can be acquired, processed, and visualized. Manipulating data once it's been gathered is a fundamental skill, and there are many ways to both gather and process the data. In the coming slides, we'll review how to work with data. Whether it's human data or computer data, data can be collected from a variety of sources. Surveys, sensors, websites, search engines, bank accounts, shopping receipts, or historical records. A few more specific examples of where we can acquire data using the methods listed are provided below. Digital medical records, record-keeping means such as attendance and grades in education, technology used to scan soil on farms to determine if it's fertile, technology used to maintain data on genetically modified and planted crops, robots used to complete repetitive tasks in manufacturing facilities, and artificial intelligence devices such as Siri and Google Home. Crowdsourcing is a specific way to obtain data from the public. Crowdsourcing is the practice of obtaining information or ideas from a large group of people. You may hear crowdsourcing referred to as citizen science. Examples of crowdsourcing include businesses asking consumers to share ideas about packaging or branding, universities, scientists, or laboratories reaching out to the public about ideas to solve a problem, companies seeking ideas for innovations, and scientists asking for people to share specific data, like animal sightings or weather data. The Merlin Bird Id App is one specific example of crowdsourcing. Developed by Cornell University, the app leads users through a series of questions to help them identify birds that they see. One question asks for the user's location. When the user finds their bird, they click on a button that says, "That's my bird." The app is interesting to users and helps them identify new birds, but it also provides valuable information for ornithologists at Cornell about where birds are located. There's a lot of data stored, collected, and processed every minute in a computer system. Data processing is defined as the manipulation of data to create meaningful information. In addition to making data usable, when we process data, we are also looking at different interpretations of the data and how they can be visualized. If data is stored locally on a device, then searching the local disk memory would provide access to the data. Data can also be stored on external or web-based databases or on a separate piece of software. If it is sensitive data that should be accessible by the public, like medical records, the data is encrypted to protect the original text from being accessible to anyone. Despite having many ways locally, externally, and in a web-based format to store data, there are a few factors that must be considered when storing data. The scale of the data must be considered. This means the quantity of data storage that is necessary to house the data must be available. The backup of the data must be considered. This means that there's a copy of the data somewhere that can be used to restore the original data if it is lost or becomes corrupt. The redundancy of the data must be considered. This factors into backing up data, as a redundant piece of data is a copy of an original piece of data that is stored elsewhere. There must be enough storage to hold both the original data and the redundant data. Data is often housed in databases. Databases are large collections of data, sometimes from the same source and sometimes from different sources. Databases often look like a spreadsheet with rows and columns of numerical and categorical data. With an organization system like this, programs are able to pull pieces of data from the database that they need. Languages have been developed to help computers pull information from databases. One of these is called Structured Query Language, or SQL. In order to pull data from databases, computers use database query languages such as SQL to gather and find the information needed for a program in a database. Spreadsheets have tools that can help in the processing of data. Spreadsheets can sort columns and rows into ascending or descending numeric order or alphabetical order. Spreadsheets can count quantities of values that exist in rows or columns. Spreadsheets can add, subtract, multiply, and divide values. Spreadsheets can hold data and create charts and graphs given datasets. These functions and spreadsheet tools are very useful when looking for relevant data and filtering out unwanted data. Programs are a common way to process data because they are capable of gathering a large amount of data as input, searching through the data to see if all of it is usable, and then clustering the data. Clustering the data means organizing the data into groups that have similar content or sources. From a set of data, programs can use looping structures to find and create new lists of smaller subsets of information. Programs have the ability to read information from spreadsheets and identify patterns or trends. There are many types of search tools available to find data. When you're beginning a search engine is a very useful tool. There are many sites that show what is trending in the world. Trending topics are ones found by a searching algorithm that are talked about the most during a period of time on a website. On many social media websites, there are trending hashtags that are used to share a common thread or a common topic. Linking ideas and information through a trending hashtag is a way that the public has found to assist sorting algorithms, although unintentionally. Searching and sorting oftentimes work hand in hand to process data. Understanding where they're used is key to developing more complex and useful programs. As we've said, computers like structured and organized data. Unfortunately, much of the data that humans provide is not neat. Gathering data easily and efficiently can be a large problem. In addition to the quantity of data that is frequently needed, a few other problems can pose challenges. Data needs to be cleaned, it may be incomplete, it may be invalid, it may need to be combined with other sources. Cleaning data, also known as data sanitization, can refer to the modification of data that doesn't meet the formatting requirements for that type of data. An example of data that may be cleaned from a set of data would be a number that is not correctly formatted as a number and instead looks like a string. Data sanitization would revise the data to be the correct number format. A money value that is not formatted with the traditional $sign format might not be utilized correctly by banking software. These are examples of data that would need to be sanitized before being used in a program. Depending on how the data is requested, users may choose to abbreviate, shorten, or provide an incorrect type of input, which would then be unusable in the program. An abbreviation or shortening of data, such as providing initials when a user's first name and last name are requested, would be an example of incomplete data. If a user is asked for their age, which should be a number value, but instead provide their birthday, which is a string value, that would be classified as invalid data. As with data that is incorrectly formatted, data that is incomplete or invalid cannot be used in an algorithm. People have an easier time understanding patterns and trends of information if it is displayed visually. Data can be visualized in a number of different ways, including bar graphs, pie charts, line graphs, scatter plots, and images. Visualizing data is useful in many industries like science, government, sports, agriculture, music, and medicine. Visualizations can be used to make predictions about events occurring around the world. Answers to questions can be found by sorting through data displayed in visualizations. Patterns can be easily seen through visualizations. An increase or a decrease in growth can be shown in visualizations. A visualization is much easier to read and gather information from than reading entire documents or spreadsheets. Visualizations of data can be skewed based on the number scales plotted on the axes or by leaving out data. Notice how on the chart the y-axis scale does not start at 0. See, it starts at 15%. This is a misleading chart as it does not make it clearly known where the scale starts. Many viewing this data would assume the y-axis begins at 0. Matplotlib is what's known as a Python library that will help us to create visualizations like graphs and charts to show our data. A library, in a programming language, is a collection of related routines that a program can call upon to use. Since a library is already created, a programmer can assume that if used correctly, the routines invoked will work. Matplotlib is a comprehensive library created to help programmers visualize information. Notice the differences in the two pieces of code below and the resulting effects in the visualization. So here, we're plotting two arrays. Here, we're just plotting one array. And you can see that there's more data here, right? There's more of a curve. This is just a straight line. Visualizations are very helpful when using small sets of data, but also when working with large data sets. Let's say that we're tracking the trends of mobile phone usage during the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s. We've gathered that the number of people using mobile phones were 5,200,000 in 1990, 33,750,000 in 1995, and 86 million in 1999. We've gathered that the number of people using mobile phones were 109,400,000 in 2000, 207,800,000 in 2005, and 276,600,000 in 2009. We've gathered that the number of people using mobile phones were 300,500,000 in 2010, 4 billion in 2015, and 4,680,000,000 in 2019. With that data gathered, we can determine the XY plotted values for each chart. We'll create a line graph of the 1990s, a line graph of the 2000s, and a line graph of the 2010s. We can see the different graphs separated by color, but also by the decade that they apply to. Let's say that you poll the children, parents, and grandparents at a barbecue to see who wants hamburgers for dinner. You find that the children want 5 hamburgers, the parents want 11 hamburgers, and the grandparents want 3 hamburgers. A bar graph would be an ideal way to represent this data. The Matplotlib library has the ability to create bar graphs in addition to the line graphs and scatter plots we've already seen. The statement to create a bar graph looks very similar to the statements we've already seen. Try the code below and run it. So here we have bar for bar graph. On the next slide, we'll see what it looks like. You can see that the two lists given to the bar function provided the names of each set of data and the data assigned to it. Practice questions.